Some companies don't collapse because the market suddenly turned against them. They collapse because the market finally discovers what was hiding underneath. For years, investors can be hypnotized by flashy offices, famous founders, massive valuations, and promises of a revolutionary future. Then, reality arrives. And when it does, billions can disappear almost overnight. Take Theranos. Elizabeth Holmes promised something that sounded almost magical. Hundreds of medical tests from just a tiny drop of blood. Investors believed her, and Theranos raised more than $700 million. But regulators and investigators eventually uncovered that the technology did not work as advertised. Holmes was later convicted of defrauding investors and sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. But here's the uncomfortable part. Theranos wasn't just a story about one dishonest founder. It was a story about what happens when people desperately want to believe a story. The technology sounded revolutionary. The founder looked like a genius. Powerful people supported the company. And every new success made the next person more willing to believe it. Then there was WeWork. At its peak, investors valued the company at roughly $47 billion. But when WeWork prepared to go public in 2019, investors finally got a much clearer look at its finances, losses, governance, and business model. The magic disappeared. Its valuation collapsed, Adam Neumann stepped down as CEO, and the company eventually entered bankruptcy. And then came FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried built an image of himself as a brilliant young billionaire running one of crypto's biggest exchanges. But behind the image was something far darker. FTX had used customer funds in ways customers had not authorized. And when confidence disappeared in November 2022, the entire structure collapsed with astonishing speed. Bankman-Fried was later convicted of fraud and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Notice the pattern. These companies looked completely different. Blood testing, office space, cryptocurrency, but the psychology was remarkably similar. People confused confidence with competence. They confused growth with strength, and they confused a high valuation with a valuable business. That creates one of the most dangerous traps in business. Once everyone has publicly declared that something is brilliant, admitting that it might be nonsense becomes psychologically painful. So people keep doubling down until they can't. The biggest lesson isn't never trust startups. It's much simpler. Look at what the company actually does. Ask where the money comes from. Separate the founder's personality from the business. And whenever everyone seems certain that something is worth billions, ask the question nobody wants to ask. What happens if the story stops being believable? Because bullshit companies rarely collapse when the bullshit begins. They collapse when people finally stop believing it. And sometimes that collapse isn't a tragedy. It's reality arriving late. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Which company do you think the market is overhyping right now?